Greetings. I'm Ethan. I'm 25 and work in logistics. Until recently, my life was fairly predictable. I rent a modest apartment, stay focused on my job, and try my best to keep up with the bills. But in the past few months, things started spiraling downward. Housing costs in Brookhaven skyrocketed. My roommate moved out suddenly, and I was left drowning in expenses. That's when my close friend Noah stepped in with an offer. Why don't you crash at my place for a while? With my parents seeing no issue, I packed up and moved into the guest room of his family's suburban home. His father was often away on business trips, but his mother, Sophia, was usually around. I remembered her from the old days when she'd pick Noah up after basketball practice, always carrying herself with elegance, warmth, and a quiet authority that drew attention wherever she went. Her dark chestnut hair, piercing green eyes, and graceful composure had left an impression. When I moved in, I assumed she'd greet me politely, then continue with her routine. But I was mistaken. On my second day, Noah left early, and as I made coffee in the kitchen, Sophia walked in wearing a soft, ivory robe that draped just above her knees. Her damp hair suggested she'd just stepped out of the shower. I tried not to stare, but she looked effortlessly radiant. She sighed lightly, as though speaking of something ordinary. "I hoped you hadn't gone out already," she said, explaining she needed help carrying a box of decorations from the garage up to the attic. It was too heavy for her alone. I nodded without hesitation. "Of course, I'll give you a hand." We headed out together. The box wasn't truly that heavy, but I carried it anyway, following her up the attic stairs. At the doorway, she gave me a sweet smile and murmured, "Let's just pretend you're only here to help." The curve of her lips hinted at something unspoken, and in that brief moment, the air between us shifted. Inside, I handed her the box, and though no words followed, that smile stayed with me. Later that evening, Noah came home, and life returned to its usual rhythm. We ate dinner, cracked jokes over a loud action movie, and laughed as if nothing had changed. Yet, my mind replayed the attic scene over and over. Her voice, her eyes, the softness of her words. The next morning, she asked me for help again. This time it was with a loose curtain rod in her room. Noah had already left for work. I was in the kitchen in a tank top and gym shorts when she walked in, dressed and composed, though with something unreadable in her expression. In her room, the silence seemed to hum with tension. I climbed the ladder to fix the rod, then glanced back to find her standing close, too close. "I've been alone in this house longer than you think," she said softly. We both stayed still. I answered gently, "You don't seem like someone who minds solitude." She smiled faintly. "Maybe you'd be surprised. There was no touch, no embrace. Just an unspoken current running stronger than before." It was clear this wasn't casual for her, and I felt the same. That Thursday evening, the possibility became reality. Noah had plans of his own, leaving with excitement after meeting a girl from the gym. By 7, the house was quiet, settled into calm. That's when Sophia walked into the kitchen, graceful and unhurried, as I stood there layering slices of bread into a sandwich. She wore tailored black slacks with a fitted beige silk blouse. Despite looking tired, she carried an elegance that was impossible to overlook. "Since when did you become such a chef?" she teased, smiling as she leaned against the counter. I grinned back. "Only if you count sandwiches." She moved closer with quiet steps and poured herself a glass of wine. "Even sandwiches are better than nothing," she said lightly. I nodded in agreement. We eventually settled into the living room, seated at opposite ends of the couch. The TV flickered in the background, but neither of us cared for it. Instead, we talked. At first, the conversation wandered. Funny stories from Noah's childhood, her current work at a community nonprofit, the exhaustion she couldn't seem to shake. Her voice was calm and melodic, but underneath it was something heavier, unsaid. I could see it in the way her eyes lingered on her wine glass. Then she asked quietly, "Do you ever feel like you're just existing?" I turned to face her. For the first time, she was looking straight at me, fully present. "I've been married 21 years, Ethan," she said. "No, 22. She paused. "Out of those years, do you know how many made me feel like someone's true partner?" I didn't answer. I didn't need to. She gave a soft laugh, almost embarrassed. Maybe I shouldn't be saying this. It's okay, I told her gently. You don't have to pretend with me. Her eyes lingered on mine for a long moment before she stood. Could you help me with something upstairs? She asked, her voice calm but edged with something else. We went up together. Her bedroom was dim, lit only by a lamp that cast a warm golden glow. She pointed at the dresser, saying the top drawer was stuck. I pulled it. It slid open easily. It hadn't been stuck at all. When I turned, she was only a few steps away, arms crossed, breath uneven. It looked as though she was guarding more than just herself. Before I could think, the words slipped out. Sophia, maybe we should stop this before it starts. Unmoved, she asked softly, do you really want to stop? I didn't answer. She stepped closer, closing the distance without touching. The warmth of her presence pressed against me. Silence filled the room, heavy and alive. Then she leaned in. Her kiss wasn't rushed. It was intentional, steady, undeniable. I didn't hesitate. I kissed her back without doubt, without second-guessing, just letting it happen. Her fingers traced the length of my arms and slid to my waist. She guided me toward the bed but paused, her hand resting on my chest. Ethan, she whispered, making sure I understood. This was her choice. Deliberate. Conscious. That night changed everything. It wasn't just physical intimacy. It wasn't boredom or wine or carelessness. It was deliberate, powerful, the breaking point after decades of silence, loneliness, and monotony. For me, it was intoxicating, reckless, unlike anything I had ever felt. I slipped out of her room around 2 in the morning, barefoot in the hallway. Noah's door was shut. My heart pounded as if I'd sprinted, but when I crawled into the guest bed and stared at the ceiling, I realized something startling. I didn't feel guilty. Instead, I was already anticipating the next time. And there's a next time. At first, it was just subtle things, quick glances in the kitchen, fingertips brushing while passing salt. But underneath those fleeting gestures was a secret so heavy it seemed impossible to contain. Sophia remained poised, composed, as if nothing had changed. But I knew, and so did she, that the stillness only lasted until Noah left the house. Then the air shifted instantly. One evening, after Noah had been tied up at work for 2 weeks straight, Sophia texted me. I'm making tea. Want some? That was all I needed to know. Minutes later, I climbed the stairs. She was perched on the edge of her bed, barefoot, her loose sweater slipping from one shoulder. She handed me a mug, but I set it aside untouched. Instead, I leaned in and kissed her. Words were scarce on those nights, and maybe that's what made them feel even more intense. It wasn't about daydreams or illusions. It was about silence, about comfort, about being seen without needing to explain or justify. She never said it aloud, but I felt certain I was more to her than just a passing distraction. And she was not merely a thrill for me. Our mornings became our quiet ritual. After Noah left for work, we'd sit at the kitchen table, coffee steaming between us. Sometimes our feet brushed under the table, casual yet deliberate, as if the night before hadn't happened. We spoke of books, politics, her work at the nonprofit. I was drawn in, completely spellbound. Yet guilt hovered close, thinly veiled, never entirely absent. One evening she lay beside me, her face turned toward mine, studying me as though she wanted to memorize every feature. This is the first time I've ever done something like this, she whispered. I nodded, letting her know I heard her. I don't feel guilty, she continued softly. I don't feel ashamed, but I am terrified. What are you afraid of? I asked gently. Her answer came quiet but firm. How simple it all is. And she was right. That was what made it dangerous. There was no trickery, no complication, just this force between us, rewriting boundaries, stripping away rules, overriding reason. Consequences seemed far away, like they belonged to another world. Inside ours, none of it mattered. But time doesn't stop, and rules don't disappear. One afternoon, Noah came home unexpectedly early. I had just stepped out of Sophia's room, thankfully fully dressed, when the sound of the front door jolted me. My chest thudded as I darted down the hallway toward the kitchen, pretending I'd only left the bathroom. Hey man, Noah called. I forced a smile. Nothing much, just relaxing. He remained oblivious. But Sophia didn't come downstairs at all that evening. Later that night, my phone buzzed with her text. We need to be more careful. I typed back simply, yes, you're right. But caution didn't mean ending it. A Saturday caught us off guard. Her husband showed up without warning, 2 days earlier than expected. I was sitting on the porch when his car rolled into the driveway. I bolted inside, meeting Sophia's gaze. For the first time, fear filled her eyes, raw and unguarded. We didn't speak. We didn't meet again for 3 long days. And in those days, I discovered something that unsettled me as much as it thrilled me. I missed her, not just her presence. I felt her absence gnawing at me. Yet another realization followed, darker and heavier. Noah had been my friend for years. I was living under the same roof with the man she was married to. Every choice we made risked tearing apart more than just ourselves. Still, we continued. Another night. Another kiss stolen in the dark. Another whisper against my skin. One evening, she asked, almost trembling, if I were single, would you stay with me? I didn't answer. She didn't push me to. But the question refused to leave, echoing inside me long after. What we shared wasn't just passion hidden in shadows. It was evolving, gaining weight. I could feel her leaning on me, see it in her eyes. She hadn't really lived for years. Now she was alive again, her kisses carrying urgency, as though they might be her last. And I realized I was falling for her. Maybe I already had. The next morning, a strange heaviness pressed on my chest. That kind of unease you can't explain, but you feel it crawling under your skin. I stayed in the guest room, staring at the ceiling, trying to ignore it. But then I noticed. For 2 days, she hadn't texted. No good morning. No secret smiles at breakfast. No playful, could you give me a hand upstairs? Just silence. Cold. Unnatural. I tried to reason it out. Maybe she was being cautious. Maybe Noah had been around more. Maybe she just needed space. But I knew better. I knew her too well now. The little patterns, the way she covered burdens beneath a calm exterior. And deep down, I could feel it. Our connection was beginning to fade. That Friday, Noah left for a weekend hiking trip with his cousins, pulling out of the driveway at exactly 6. I lingered in the kitchen afterward, waiting, though I wasn't sure what for. A message, a glance, some sign. Nothing came. Finally, unable to stand the stillness, I climbed the stairs softly, as though each step betrayed me. Her bedroom door was closed. I hesitated, then knocked. She opened immediately. No makeup, her hair tied back, wearing an old sweater and jeans. She looked stripped down, unadorned. Not the Sophia I'd come to know in our secret moments. She didn't smile. She didn't act surprised. She simply moved aside and said quietly, "Come in." I stepped inside. The room felt cooler, heavier. We sat on the edge of her bed, near but untouched. The silence stretched painfully until she broke it. "I think we should stop." Her voice was firm, unsoftened. It was a scene I had imagined countless times, but hearing it aloud cut through me all the same. "Yes, I understand," I whispered. I could tell. Her hands clenched in her lap, as though holding herself together. "Someone will get hurt," she murmured. "Not just us." "I know," I said, and I did. But knowing didn't dull the sting. She exhaled sharply, as though forcing it all out before her courage faded. "I didn't plan this, Ethan. I didn't go looking for it. I wasn't ready for it." "Neither was I admitted. Her eyes flickered. "I might care about you too much," she whispered. "But this is fire. You know that, don't you?" "I do," I answered. "And I'm tired of hiding, of lying." Her gaze shifted, heavy with exhaustion. "Every time I look at Noah, every time I look at my husband, I feel invisible. But he is still my husband." Her voice trembled. "I'm not ashamed of what happened. I wanted to feel again, and you gave that back to me. You reminded me I'm alive. But it can't go on. We can't pretend there are no consequences." I nodded slowly, my throat too tight for words. Then she turned fully to me, her eyes searching. "Do you regret it?" "No." She studied me, then gave a soft nod. "Good. Because I don't either. I want to stop before this destroys everything." Her words landed not as rejection, but as truth. A heavy, necessary truth. We rose together, moving toward the door. She opened it but lingered there, her hand hovering in the air as if she might reach for me one last time. Instead, she said, "Promise me something. Anything. If you ever think back on this, don't drown in guilt. Remember it honestly." I swallowed hard. "I promise." And then I left. No final embrace, no last words. Just the sound of my own footsteps on the stairs, carrying a weight I couldn't put down. That night, I packed my things. I told Noah I'd found an affordable studio downtown and needed space again. He didn't press me, just nodded. Maybe he suspected something. Maybe he chose not to. By morning, I was gone. Sophia wasn't there to see me off. And that was it. Or so I believed. Nearly a year passed. 11 months exactly. I hadn't seen her, hadn't heard from her. At first, she haunted me. Her laugh replaying in my mind, her perfume clinging to phantom memory. A song on the radio, a woman passing by with the same chestnut hair. And suddenly she was there again. But slowly, her presence faded into the background hum of my life. Outwardly, I moved forward. I signed a lease on a small apartment, picked up freelance contracts, went on dates that never lasted. I convinced myself I was fine. Then one Saturday afternoon, everything shifted again. I ducked into a little bistro I'd never visited, just killing time before a meeting. Ordered a black coffee, scrolled through my phone. And then, Ethan, not a greeting, just my name. I looked up instantly, and there she was, Sophia, nearly unchanged, though life had etched new lines into her eyes. She still carried that calm elegance, that magnetic steadiness. Her hair was tied back simply, her long beige coat draped over a black turtleneck. "Wow," I breathed, rising too quickly. "Hello," she said softly, smiling with care. "Hello," I echoed. "May I sit?" "Of course." She placed her purse down, folding her hands neatly in her lap. Silence stretched, but not an awkward silence. A familiar, quiet one. "I didn't expect to see you here," she admitted. "Neither did I. I don't usually come to this part of town. My office had an event nearby." She glanced toward the window, then back at me. "You look good." "Thank you," I said softly. "You too." Her eyes lingered, then drifted away again. "I've thought about messaging you more times than I can count." "I know the feeling," I said. Her gaze returned to mine, steady and searching. Her eyes, those same green eyes, hadn't changed at all. They were still piercingly clear. Even now, her calm presence made me feel as though she could see straight through me. "What I said before," she whispered, "I meant it all." There was no hesitation in her voice, no shadow of regret. "Neither did I," I replied, the words settling between us like a fragile truth. She leaned in slightly, her voice dropping softer still. "My feelings haven't changed." It unsettled me. The way her return pulled open not just memories of desire, but of something far deeper, something that had never truly loosened its hold. "How are things at home?" I asked cautiously. Her lips curved into a restrained smile. "Steady, or maybe worse, if I'm honest." I nodded, understanding more than I wanted to admit. "And Daniel?" she asked, her tone laced with reluctant sympathy. "As oblivious as ever," I said. "He still mentions you sometimes, wonders how you're doing." The remark struck me harder than I expected, and I turned my eyes away. "I think of him too," she murmured after a pause. Her hand slipped into the pocket of her coat, pulling out her phone. She unlocked it, typed something, then stopped, staring at the screen. A single unsent message glowed faintly before she set the phone on the table. "Noah will be home tomorrow." I looked at it, not with fear, but with recognition, memory, longing, inevitability. "I've tried to forget us," she said, her voice trembling just enough to betray her. "Try to bury it. But it lingers, Michael. I don't think it ever left." I lifted my eyes to hers. "The same here." The coffee between us grew cold, untouched. Around us, the cafe buzzed with laughter, footsteps, life moving forward. Yet in that moment, the world seemed to fall away, and time bent back on itself. "If we do this again," I said slowly, "we can't lie to ourselves." Her reply came without hesitation. "We never did. That's why it was real." That night, near midnight, my phone lit up. The sender, her. The message, tomorrow. Noon. I didn't reply, but I went. When the door opened, she stood there in a plain gray sweater and loose trousers. No makeup, her hair unpinned, falling free. She said nothing, only met my eyes for a long, wordless moment. I stepped inside. She closed the door softly behind us. And just like that, we were back in the place we had tried to abandon, yet never truly left.